Here now, we welcome House GOP Chief Deputy Whip Peter Roskam from Illinois. As always, Mr. Roskam, am I going to be right or wrong on this?
Larry,
we're going to avoid the fiscal cliff calamity recession?
House Republicans want to avoid the fiscal cliff recession. The White House is acting with impunity right now. Essentially, the House GOP came to the table with an offer that was substantive, and the White House has so far said, look, we want to continue talking about 1/4 of the president's own architecture. The president said there was a 3-to-1 ratio between savings or cuts and revenue. For the past 30 days, they focused exclusively on the revenue side, but they have been silent, and I mean silent, absolutely nothing in terms of a forthcoming plan on how they propose.
A little bit of breaking news this evening. Apparently, the White House has gone from $1.6 trillion in revenues, it's a nice number, to $1.4 trillion in revenues.
Wow, the studio is shaking.
I don't know
with
if
that.
that's a
I hold on. No.
Mr. Boehner's at $800 billion, and there's been no budging on the tax rates. The White House still wants the upper-end tax rates, and no new information on the entitlement. So basically, we're nowhere. But what I'm suggesting this, you're part of leadership. It's a game of chicken. Neither political party can afford this kind of recession. The country can't take it. After what we've been through in the last 4, 5, 6 years, we can't take it. So if that means extending the middle-class tax cuts, so be it. I see that as the ultimate Republican position.
All right, let me accept your premise, but I've got to pile on a little bit more.
Right.
So let me contemplate something that's even worse than a recession, and that is a debt crisis. So if you've got a White House that is committed to going from $16 trillion in debt to $22 trillion in debt, which is where the Obama administration would lead us over the next 4 years, then what do you do with that knowledge? What if you come to the certainty that the president's worldview has been created in the state of Illinois, which is a fiscal basket case today? The state of Illinois, similar to the federal government, had a structural deficit, and its remedy was to raise taxes. What happened? This didn't come in as predicted, no surprise. $7 to $8 billion in current unpaid bills that the state has, more per capita debt than any state in the union, higher the average unemployment rate.
No growth makes it worse.
That makes it worse.
No, but that's really my point. Look, this can be a deal to extend the so-called middle-class tax cuts that I won't like as a Reagan supply-sider, because top marginal rates are going to go up, capital gains, dividends are going to go up. But I say this to you. A $500 billion tax increase, gradually moving up through the first quarter of next year, is going to be a disaster for this country. So it's the lesser of two evils, or it's the evil of two lessers.
You know what's worrying me? I'm tracking those analogies as you're saying them.
Right.
They're so confusing,
No,
but I'm understanding them, which is how inside baseball this is. Look, here's the knowledge, here's the certainty that we have. Let me put it this way. What salespeople end up staying in their positions for very long if they oversell a product? It doesn't work. President Obama and his administration is overselling what the revenues will do. They're basically saying if you go tax somebody else, then the fiscal problems will go away.
But you can't oversell a recession. I mean, seriously, I get your point about future debt. But another recession, which is the greater probability, will drive debt up the wall, drive deficits up the wall. The psyche of this country can't take it. You know what? I don't want any of these marginal tax rates to go. I don't have to agree with the president's position. But I think the Republican Party could be heroic if it just says, okay, for the moment, before we deal with entitlements next year, before we deal with the debt ceiling next year, before we deal with spending next year, let's just get through this recession and extend the middle-class tax cuts. This could get the GOP out from under a political rock.
Look, here's where the heroism comes from. The heroism already is on the table in the fact of saying we're willing to put new revenues on the table. I'm a party that doesn't believe that we have a revenue problem, we've got a spending problem. So the willingness to move towards that remedy, I wouldn't characterize it as heroism, but you get my point. It is a very significant move, and so far we've seen nothing on the part of the White House to engage substantively on the cost of the real cost driver.
I tried. I did my best. Many thanks, Congressman Peter Roskam, a member of the leadership. Now, folks, another